Hi, folks. Glad that you're here. We're here to spend some time in God's Word. And God's Word, the Bible, is such a great collection spanning over 3,000 years of different types of writings. There's historical books, books of prophecy, and books of poetry, one of which we're going to look at today. A very special book of poetry, the Old Testament book of Psalms. It's actually a collection of Hebrew worship songs. And each one conveys human emotion as it was experienced in living each day. The psalmists put their feelings to song, understanding that all they encountered in life was interconnected with their faith in God. Now, it is not by coincidence that many of their songs were in direct response to how other people made them feel. It shouldn't be surprising. I mean, how many modern songs are written today just to express human emotion of human interaction? I'm falling in love. I've had my heart broken. Well, such is the case of the psalm that we're going to focus on for today. We're going to give our attention to Psalm number 54. In this particular psalm, a youthful David expresses a period of struggle from his roller coaster life. An ancient commentator added insight to the event that inspired this sonnet in the prelude or superscription to the psalm. Now, not all the psalms have such editorial notes, but we do have it here. And here we discover this, the editor put it this way: for the director of music with stringed instrument, a maskil of David. When the Ziphites had gone to Saul and said, "Is not David hiding among us?" Now this gives us, the reader, a historical as well as biblical reference to what David was encountering. It can be learned from these notes that this song is a maskil. Now, that term is not familiar to us in the English, but in the ancient world, according to Chuck Swindoll, maskil songs were designed to give instruction and insight when dealing with certain situations. They were practical teaching tools. Now, I'm probably aging myself a little bit, but how many of you remember Schoolhouse Rock from your younger days? They really were modern-day maskils. They taught children through songs things like how laws were enacted, the purpose of conjunctions and sentences. You know, the old song, conjunction, junction, what's your function? Taught how our nation gained its independence from England, about electricity, and lots of other topics. The maskils of the Hebrew songbook known as Psalms were songs that helped people of faith learn to address issues in their lives, applying their faith and follow practical steps toward resolution of the issues they were facing. In the case of Psalm number 54, David is dealing with an issue with which each of us can certainly identify at some level. He was having people problems. Now, I know none of you probably have experienced any of those. But as we can see in the prelude of the song, we don't have to guess at the subject of his pain. It's been spelled out for us. When the Ziphites had gone to Saul and said, "Is David not hiding among us?" The account of this relational bump in the road for David is recorded in 1 Samuel chapter 23, verses 14 through 26. David had risen to a place of prominence in the Hebrew nation as a warrior leader in Saul's armies. He had soothed Saul's troubled spirit with music. He had served the king and his nation with honor and valor and integrity, but nevertheless, Saul saw David as a threat to his throne. And in jealous envy of David's popularity among the people, he tried to kill this young warrior. Ultimately, when it became clear that Saul would not rest until David was snuffed out, David decided that it was best to get out of town. He ran from the king into the wilderness. However, Saul would not be deterred. he went after young David. It was explained, the singer's hiding place is bleak and rugged. His life is in danger, so he tries to find a place of safety. Everything he endeavors to do backfires. He gets to a spot called the Hill of Hakaliah and thinks that he's safe. He's in Zephite territory. So far as he can tell, he has found neutral ground, a place to rest, a stopover to sleep. But no rest is possible. The Ziphites turn against him and report his whereabouts to Saul. And the chase is on again. David flees into the wilderness of Moab, but he finds himself at that point surrounded by the Ziphites and Saul's soldiers. It has been observed, I can just picture David. He is dirty, sweaty, hungry, thirsty, exhausted, and no doubt discouraged. He slumps down beneath the shadow of a rock to escape the searing rays of the Palestinian sun, and he begins to write his feelings in poetic form. The result of his experience is Psalm 54. As I spent some time reading the lyrics of this short song, I was drawn to a valuable lesson for you and me as we encounter relationships that have gone sour. As we see people in our own lives who've taken the side opposing us, who appear to be seeking our harm. Within these 7 verses, there's an outline of how we can best respond when we find ourselves in the pain of such a difficult predicament. David demonstrated a healthy course of action when faced with unhealthy relationships. Now take note of the interactions found in David's maskil. Psalm 54 begins, "Come with great power, O God, and save me. Defend me with your might. Oh, listen to my prayer." In the opening bar of the song, what is it that David is doing? Yes, he's praying. I think it's noteworthy. The very first step in David's healthy course of action in addressing unhealthy relationships is making an appeal. David took the matter which had so shaken him, that was drilling him with great despair and disappointment. His first step was to go to God. Now you might be thinking, well, I'm in church. Of course, the pastor is going to tell me I need to be praying more. You know, that is what preachers do. Well, along with eating fried chicken and taking up an offering. But remember, this is not Mike's opinion here. This is a song that is solely designed to give instruction and insight when dealing with a certain situation. Maybe, just maybe, David is endeavoring to help you and me learn from his experience. Well, David opens with an appeal to God regarding the situation that has gripped his heart. People have hurt him. They've treated him unfairly. People, surprisingly, have taken sides against him, and his heart is broken. He is tormented by the pain of rejection and perplexed by the fact that he has been upright before the ones who are bringing the heat. And in this moment, David makes an appeal to God. Now, this may seem really novel. When you and I come under mistreatment by others, what has been the most common ways that we respond? Some of us would like to push back. Others maybe begin to plot getting even. Some would choose just to placate them to have peace. Well, let me ask you, how many times does pushing back only escalate a situation? Plotting revenge only eats at you inside, and then leads to action that is far from resolving the conflict. As damaging as revenge can be, so is placating someone who is wrongly striking out at you. It can lead to further abuse and depression. So consider, what is the common denominator in those responses? They are the course of action chosen by our own minds, by our own feelings, as a result of our pain. But David demonstrated to let our very first action be an appeal to God. In the New Testament, as Paul encouraged a young pastor named Timothy, he instructed in this way. He says, the first thing I want you to do is to pray. Pray every way you know how. It is somehow in our nature to pray as a last resort rather than see it as our highest privilege and first step. David's song of instruction gives a healthy course of action when faced with unhealthy relationships. David demonstrated that we are to begin by making an appeal, by talking to God. Well, the second step that we see in his maskil, this healthy course of action, is to make an assessment. Look at verse 3 of the text. For strangers are attacking me. Violent people are trying to kill me. They care nothing for God. Now, I'd like for you to take note here that David has identified the ones causing him hardship and has made an honest assessment of their actions. He begins with the first group calling them strangers. He's referring here more than likely to the Ziphites. He doesn't have beef with them. He's done nothing to warrant their aggressiveness. They were strangers. They didn't know him. They had only heard stories, and they'd gotten wind that King Saul wanted David's hide to help the king. Oh, well, that would have been a feather in their cap. It would have looked good on their resume. It could have brought benefits to their clan from the king. Well, beyond that, the word strangers in the original language is more than just someone who didn't know someone else. The word was from a term used in the Old Testament for investigating a matter, searching out something, like a spy would do. They were dispersed throughout the land, searching for David on behalf of the king. These people were making assumptions, and wrongfully so, that David was somehow guilty of crimes against the state. They teamed up with Saul to try to bring David down, and they didn't give David a chance. They were strangers to him, but it didn't matter. They were on the attack as they sided with the one who was truly seeking his harm. They thought it might benefit them. Secondly, David identifies violent people are trying to kill me. Now, we understand from the account, this was Saul and his forces. Now, I can only believe that this really stung David to the core. He had served the king honorably. He had married into the king's family. He was Saul's son-in-law, marrying Saul's daughter, Michal. Saul's son Jonathan and David were best of friends, yet Saul had repeatedly threatened him with violence. And now, David was fleeing for his life because Saul was committed to killing him. How Saul's turn on David must have broken his heart. Or maybe you've been there. You didn't see it coming. You can't understand why they treated you that way. You're not alone. David knew all about what you're feeling. Beyond that, you have someone who really understands. No one knows such betrayal like Jesus. As the writer of Hebrews declared, let us then hold firmly to the faith we profess, for we have a great high priest who's gone into the very presence of God. Jesus, the Son of God, our high priest, is not one who cannot feel sympathy for our weaknesses. On the contrary, we have a high priest who is tempted in every way that we are, but did not sin. Let us have confidence then and approach God's throne where there is grace. There we will receive mercy and find grace to help us just when we need it. The reality is, while we have in Jesus someone who understands such heartache, a healthy course of action when faced with unhealthy relationships is to give an honest assessment of those causing grief. In David's final assessment of those seeking his harm, he says, they care nothing for God. Their actions are far from God's will. Their intentions are far from God's will. It's been observed, you have to consider the source. They were not being directed by God. They were not being guided by God's instructions. They were not living in a godlike manner. He assessed those who sought him harm, and assessing them helped contextualize their actions. They were just living as godless people live. Well, that leads me to the third step in a healthy course of action. It is to make an adjustment. David made his appeal to God, and he assessed those who were the source of his pain, and then David pivots. He took a step back from both Saul and the Ziphites. He writes, God is my helper. The Lord is with those who support my life. He will repay my enemies for their evil. In your faithfulness, destroy them. David had given his struggle over to God's hand and trusted God to handle it. Even beyond that, I love the latter part of the first sentence. The Lord is with those who support my life. When believers are feeling hurt, when they are experiencing betrayal, we have to look beyond the haze of the pain being inflicted and recall that there is a network of people who are willing to come alongside of us. In David's case, there was an army of people who did seek him out, even in the face of Saul's threats, and they sided with the king, or David who would become king. They stood with this young man, even in the midst of his dark hour. Here's the point. When you have assessed the actions of those who have led you to the place of pain, and their course is unlikely to be altered, you have to make an adjustment. Some people, out of love for those who've created a pattern of strife, keep going back in hope that things will change, or that they can change them. David did so with Saul. In my 30-plus years of serving as a pastor, I've spent a lot of time counseling couples before they get married. My wife and I, we've got a unique relationship. We've been together 40 years. Never had an argument. We've learned to communicate. We came from dysfunctional homes, and we just decided early on that we were going to engage things that would make our lives somewhat freed from the things that we saw in our own homes. But we're an exception, I know. But if I hear someone coming into these counseling sessions and with a wink, 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 I can change him, or I'm going to change her, I chuckle, because they're in for trouble. The only one that's going to change them is Jesus Christ. And their willingness to change. And you've got to either accept that partner for who he or she is, or there's going to be problems. if you keep going back in this difficult situation, it's not likely to change. This is not healthy in the long run. You have to leave these people in God's hands. Pray for Him to change them. And extract yourself from the firing line in order to give yourself the opportunity to heal yourself. Connect with a community of others who will love you and support you in the love of the Lord. Making an adjustment is a part of a healthy course of action in addressing unhealthy relationships. Well, the final note in David's instructions is to make a healthy advance. David was ready to worship. He was prepared to honor God for how God was going to work through the situation, how God would bring him healing and vindication. David was ready to move on in celebration. Now listen to his closing declaration. Gladly I bring my sacrifices to you. I will praise your name, O Lord, for it is good. God has rescued me from all of my trouble and triumphed over my enemies. If indeed David penned this psalm in the midst of his challenges at the hands of Saul, he closes it out in faith-filled anticipation of what God would do. The writer of the New Testament book of Hebrews observed, now faith means putting our full confidence in the things that we hope for. It means being certain of things we cannot see. It was this kind of faith that won there the heroes of the faith of the past, reputation for the saints of old. We have brought our appeal to God. We have made an honest assessment and adjusted our environment. Then we advance in confidence of who God is. That God loves us, and He'll handle this in the way that's best, in the time that's most advantageous, and in that which accomplishes His purposes, even if it's changing me in a way that's most completely in His will. We respond in trust and thanksgiving, knowing that God can handle this, and I don't need to worry about it any further. We respond, even though right now it's not clear. We respond in faith. You may be struggling with one of those relationships right now. I would encourage you to take a healthy course of action in addressing unhealthy relationships. Make an appeal. God is listening. Make an honest assessment and prepare to make an adjustment. Ask God to guide you. Determine in faith to make an advance.